Hi, Joseph. Hi, Pa.
Yes, Ronald, do I need to present as well?
Yeah. Hi, Rizal.
You already mentioned everything. Is it okay?
Pak Rizal, welcome, Pak Rizal.
Yeah, welcome Pak Ronald. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Win. How are you?
I'm sorry that our chair will leave us. He have another appointment, so I will sit another breakout and the other remaining section. I am Dr. Paul.
Thank you, Dr. Win, for replacing the Director General.
Hi, Ronald. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Rob. Theta, do we have everyone in the room or do we need to wait?
We can wait a little bit more,
Okay.
just because I think there are still others who are being transported.
Indeed. All right, let's wait another 3 or 4 minutes then.
Ronald, do I need to present the progress as well, or?
I believe
Because you already.
Yeah. What ASEC probably would be relevant for today's breakout session is probably the structure of the agriculture under the ASEAN framework. For example, like the introduction of ATW Guard, the SOMAMAF, and also the ministers. So I think everyone in the room might probably not aware of what is ATW Guard and what is the SOM and what is the minister, as well as the relevance of the guidelines with the other principles that ASEAN is having. I hope that it's possible, Pak Joseph.
Ronald, I can take your cue from you. If you want to start, we can proceed, and then the others can just catch up also.
Indeed. So I guess we'll start with Pak Joseph from ASEC. First, let me kindly introduce Pak Joseph. He's a senior officer from ASEAN Secretariat, which will deliver an update as well on the ASEAN-RAI, as well as probably a little bit of background on how ASEAN-RAI is being structured under the ASEAN framework. Please, Pak Joseph, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you, Ronald. Yeah, perhaps I could, can you share, who will be sharing the presentation? Let me So can, okay.
Is this your presentation? Yes?
Yes, thank you so much. Perhaps just let me just provide some progress on the implementation of the ASEAN guidelines on promoting responsible investment. I think my colleague Ronald have already mentioned a lot of this one, but perhaps just to provide a perspective within the ASEAN, within the perspective of ASEAN. So basically, next slide, please. So the ASEAN-RAI was one of the priority programs under the Vision and Strategic Plan of Food, Agriculture, and Forestry 2026 to 2025. So basically, it aims to support strategic thrust number 1, which is to increase the investments in the infrastructure and application of science and technology and in the agriculture value chain. And one of the key performance indicator for this is the development of the guidelines on promoting responsible investment. These key deliverables was agreed by the 39th meeting of the ASEAN Ministers of Agriculture and Forestry as part of our 2018 priority deliverables. Next slide, please. Thank you. So basically, the ASEAN-RAI draws upon the major principles and guidelines from the Committee of World Food Security Principles for Responsible Investments in Agriculture and Food System, the voluntary guidelines on the responsible governance of tenure of land, forests, and fisheries, as well as the regional experiences of ASEAN member states, as well as those in international best practices. So the ASEAN-RAI aims to promote responsible investment in the region that would contribute to economic development, food security, empowering the women and youth, ensure the sustainable use of the natural resources, and to ensure that we are to promote resiliency to climate change and other shocks. Also, it encourage transparent governance structure, as well as promotion and the diffusion of technologies and best practices in the region. So partly it also aims to strengthen regional cooperation and approaches among not only among ASEAN member states, but among the stakeholders within the agriculture food value chain. The ASEAN-RAI was adopted by the ASEAN Ministers of Agriculture and Forestry in October 11, 2018. Thank you. So in line with the guidelines, so we also work with the development of the action plan to implement the ASEAN-RAI. So this is also with the support of our various partners. So the action identify key activities and key players in which on how we could implement the ASEAN-RAI. So this includes activities related to capacity building, technical assistance and training program. Also in terms of raising the awareness and opportunities associated to the guidelines, as well as harmonizing the policies among member states in terms of investments, agriculture investments, as well as promoting partnerships, as well as knowledge sharing in food, in knowledge sharing. So this action plan was adopted by the 41st AMAP meeting on 15 October 2019. Since the adoption of the next slide, please. Since the adoption of the action plans, there are several strides have been achieved in terms of the implementation of the guidelines. So with the support of the Japan ASEAN Integration Fund, we were able to come up with a project proposal in terms of learning and accreditation program for ASEAN-RAI, which is composed of with the aim of a training cadre of experts on the implementation of the ASEAN-RAI guidelines based on blended learning approaches through either e-learning or in-person training. This activity is currently implemented by Grow Asia. Hopefully they will come up with a program or curriculum for the learning and accreditation program of ASEAN-RAI. Of course, there's also private sector engagement. Both Grow Asia and the ISD are very much engaged on this activity. So they have developed case studies featuring companies' investment practices and also the alignment of the ASEAN-RAI ASEAN-RAI. Also, there's ongoing inventory of the investment in agriculture investment in the region. Next slide, please. Yes, in terms of legal and technical assistance, so we do receive support from IISD in terms of promoting the alignment assessment tool of the ASEAN-RAI. So at the moment, the alignment assessment tool has already been adopted by our ministers. The aim of this tool is to come up with a scoring system that provides a simple measures on how we could assess the degree of alignment of countries' legal policy as well as institutional framework in relation to the ASEAN-RAI guidelines. So this pilot project for the alignment assessment of the ASEAN-RAI was already endorsed by our senior officials on August 22, and currently ISSD is working with various pilot countries, namely Indonesia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos PDR to implement these guidelines, this alignment tool. Perhaps let me just share as well the institutional mechanism on how the ASEAN-RAI is being implemented in ASEAN. Structure of ASEAN. Can you make it bigger, Monica? Sorry. So this is the structure of the ASEAN cooperation on food, agriculture, and forestry. So there's a lot of sectoral working groups under ASEAN. So we do have the main implementation of the main sector that implements the ASEAN-RAI is the ATW-GUARD, or the ASEAN Sectoral Working Group on Research and Development. If you could just point it out. Yeah, this one. So it does, so all the technical matters related to both the development of the guidelines, the implementation, as well as the alignment assessment tool are being discussed under the ATW-GUARD, and any outcomes and progress of these are reported to our senior officials during the annual meeting of SOM-AMAF. So they report it there, and furthermore, this would be further reported to the ASEAN Ministers of Agriculture and Forestry, or we call it AMAF. So we have 2 meetings each year for SOM-AMAF. The upcoming meeting would be on August. So all the progress of the implementation of the ASEAN-RAI will be shared and reported to SOM-AMAF this coming August for them to take cognizance and provide further guidance on how we could move forward. So after the meeting of SOM-AMAF, this would also be reported to the ASEAN Ministers of Agriculture and Forestry meeting, which will be held on October. So basically, this is the structure of the ASEAN in terms of implementing the ASEAN-RAI. I think that's all for my presentation, and I'll give the floor to my colleague Ronald.
Thank you very much, Pak Joseph. A very thorough, quick run of how ASEAN framework is running the ASEAN-RAI. So I will give the floor to Professor Dr. Erizal Jamal, who is the Director for Center for Plant Variety and Protection and Agricultural Licensing at the Ministry of Agriculture, as well as the Indonesian National Focal Point for ASEAN-RAI. Pak Erizal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pak Ronald. Good afternoon, everybody. This is for presentation material. Who will okay. I'm Edizal Jamal. I'm former Director for Plant Variety Protection and Agriculture Permit, Ministry of Agriculture, Indonesia. In this afternoon, I will present to you about the regional event on the implementation of the ASEAN Guideline on promoting responsible investment in food, agriculture, and forestry, ASEAN-RAI, based on the Indonesian experience as Indonesia and as a pilot country. Next. Before I continue with my presentation, I will give you information about some focal point about the ASEAN-RAI project, ASEAN-RAI pilot project. For some contact point is Indonesian Cooperation Bureau for under Ministry of Agriculture. For national focal point for agriculture technology working group for agriculture research and development is Indonesian Agency for Agriculture Research and Development under Ministry of Agriculture also. And for the ASEAN-RAI pilot country focal point is our office, Center for Plant Variety Protection and Agriculture Permit of Indonesia under Ministry of Agriculture also. Next. Next. I will inform you about what we already conducted in the last 3 months, I think, related with the minister and agency involved in this project. There are 10 issues or guidelines that we focused in this activity. First is related with the food nutrition security under the 10 about the regional approach. We try to attain we make arrangement under the Ministry of Agriculture for the every guideline for the 1 until 10 in under Ministry of Agriculture. For example, like for food and nutrition security, the coordinator under Ministry of Agriculture is National Food Agency of Indonesia. For the economic development, Indonesian Center for Socio-Economic and Agriculture Policy. And besides that, we try to decide the counterpart, the other ministry and beside the Ministry of Agriculture, like for the food and nutrition security, our counterpart is Ministry of Investment, Indonesia Investment Coordinating Board or BKPM. For the economic development, the coordinator is under Ministry of Agriculture, Indonesian Center for Socio-Economic and Agriculture Policy, and our counterpart is Ministry of Investment, also Ministry of Environment and Forestry, and Indonesia Government Investment Unit under Minister of Finance. Also for the other guideline, for the women and youth, land tenure, natural resource, technology, climate change, rule of law, impact, accountability, and regional approach, we already decide who will be responsibility for to be a coordinator under Ministry of Agriculture, and who will be our counterpart in related issue with other ministry office. So we put that. There are I think for the guideline 1 until 8, I think we can decide that. But for the impact, accountability, and regional approach, we have difficulty to decide our counterpart, because for the problem with the investment in agriculture in Indonesia, we still not really clearly who will be responsibility, especially in under Ministry of Agriculture. So for this issue, we working most of the time working with the our office in Center for Plant Variety Protection and Agriculture Permit, also for the Legal Service Bureau and International Cooperation Bureau. Most of the all is under Ministry of Agriculture. Next. Based on the guideline from the ASEAN-RAI, we follow the schedule and for the step of the activity. For the phase one, the inception on design, in November and December 2021, we already conducted mapping of the ASEAN-RAI against the institutional landscape of the pilot country, and we have some FGD to do that, and we start to assessment process. And post phase two, we already decide for the all coordinator to conduct self-assessment for the existing law, regulation, and policy by the pilot country, by Indonesia. And for the all coordinator, try to find the counterpart to try to conducting self-assessment of the existing law regulation. And for the, I think we already finished for the phase one and phase two, and ongoing process. I think for the phase three, peer-to-peer review, and I think now we already ready to have a review by peer for the 10 guideline, I think. And for the next phase four, I think we will do that under the ASEAN Secretary coordination. I think this is our plan. Work plan is the method and of the project. Next. What is the result for the this activity? I think as you know that Indonesia just finished to formulation a new law. We call it the law number 11 that 2022 the 2020 on job creation is in then, and this law is more about the investment and some derivative regulation, I think, related with investment also. So we some of our regulation already have in one. We conduct some assessment before that. We related with this process to formulate this law, and I think we can use this result for the assessment process. So based on what we already get, that Indonesia has conducted the self-assessment and its progress reached 90% based on the what we already try to find that all of that. And I think as I mentioned before that, we already appointed a coordinator under the Ministry of Agriculture to responsibility for assessing it for its guideline. And the results show that Indonesia already has almost all the guideline. I think we already have regulation and derivative rule in all topic and on the guideline. The problem more about the implementation of the regulation is quite diverse. Several regulation are already mature and already used by our people, but several still need dissemination and adjustment. This is what the result we found that in the until the phase 3. Next. What is this challenge of the assessment? First, it's difficult to have a clear institution as counterpart who will be responsible for the self-assessment process in is a cross-cutting issue, yeah. Especially for the as I mentioned in the previous slide about the regional approach and impact and accountability is more about the cross-cutting issue. So we have difficulty to find the counterpart who will responsibility with some issue related with regional approach and impact and accountability. So more, we work with some institution under Ministry of Agriculture. Secondly, about the lack of counterpart, understanding about regarding the objective of the ASEAN-RAI and its guidance. So we need more focus group discussion and some personal approach to our counterpart, also for the some other institution to give information and understanding about this issue. The third is the completing process is of assessment that is not according with the guidance. So based on the discussion in PES 2 and the last time for the PES 2 and the PES 3, we found that some of the self-assessment is not really according with the guidance. So we conduct more focus group discussion to make clear and self-assessment to be according with the guidance. The fourth is about the different perception in conducting in scoring, especially for the partially regular, yang more about the issue about the partially accepted and the scoring is there are some we try to get compromise about the scoring, some especially about the numbers. Some mentioned that based on the view about the implementation of the rule, and others mentioned that the scoring is already maximized, and other mentioned that it's not really implementing, so they not really the high score is to be like that. More about the perception based on the view and the knowledge about the implementation of the rule. First, about the no institution or unit handling agriculture investment, particularly for the foreign investment. This is the issue for the our Ministry of Agriculture. I think till now we not really clearly institution to handle this issue. And the last is unintegrated information regarding the investment in agriculture sectors, because it's the information scattered, so it's difficult for us to make is to be integrated information in investment in agriculture sector. Next, what to way forward based on our experience. The first, we identify which gap are the highest, and this is our priority to address this issue. For example, like I mentioned about the identification about the guideline number 9 and 10 about the impact and accountability, and also for the regional approach. We found that there is still have a high gap, so this will be our priority for the next activity. Secondly, consider to implement existing and proposed future measures to be aligned with the ASEAN-RAI. And the third, we will use the result to help identify and prioritize and sequence reform action arise out on the pilot test result, and implement those reform in line with Indonesian national objective and a priority. As I mentioned in the previous, we are in line with the program to reformation of our law, and this is what the result from this activity will be in line with this process, and we will do some action related with the to reform in line with Indonesian objective. The last is about the consider to establish institution or unit particularly according with the investment in agriculture sector. I think this is will be input to our minister about this issue in next time. Next, I think that is all, and we will give you some documentation of our activity. This is a documentation in January meeting. Then, and secondly, we have discussion meeting of the Indonesia Work Plan and mapping of ASEAN-RAI in February 23 in Jakarta, and in March 8 in Bogor we have a discussion focus group discussion to complement to complete assessment tool for the ASEAN-RAI among the stakeholder. And April 8, I think finalization of self-assessment and preparation for the workshop. We conduct the focus group discussion in Bogor. And April 19, there are workshop on the review of the alignment assessment of the ASEAN-RAI with the ASEAN secretaries. I think that is all my presentation in this afternoon. Thank you, Pak Ronald.
Thank you very much, Pak Rizal, for the thorough and detailed presentation. I would like to open the Q&A, and I would like first to invite Ms. Sarah Bruin, Senior Law Advisor with the International Institute for Sustainable Development, to deliver your question. Ms. Sarah, please.
Thank you, Ronald, and thanks everyone for joining the breakout. I actually wanted to make really more reflections on the really enlightening presentation about Indonesia's experience carrying out this alignment process. Because I think for me, there's 4 really interesting takeaways from the Indonesian experience that are actually kind of almost unintended impacts of this alignment process when we as ISD worked with ASEC to develop the tool. And the first is that this point that I think was very well made by Dr. Jamal about the institutional challenges and the fact that there's not one single coordinating agency that's responsible for agricultural investment. And when you look at that list of all the different government agencies and ministries involved, it shows just how many different partners across government really need to be coming together to make responsible investment a reality. So I think that's really important to see that so concretely, and to hear that perhaps one outcome from this process might be some kind of unit being established to help coordinate RAI issues across the government of Indonesia. I think that's really important and really interesting. And secondly, and relatedly, this point around doing the alignment process, realizing just how challenging it can be for the government itself to identify and locate all of the different measures, legal instruments, policy documents, that this is quite scattered. And this is a comment that we hear often from foreign investors when they're interested in investing in a new country. That challenge of transparency around laws and policies is a big one. So perhaps as a further outcome related to this establishment of a new unit, finding a kind of single repository in a place to put all of these laws and policies to ease particularly foreign investors in responsible ag investment to just know where all of these laws and policies are. Secondly, what I found really fascinating was the point around carrying out this process and realizing actually there's a level of awareness raising that needs to happen within the government itself around RAI issues, and the fact that perhaps this alignment process is contributing to that awareness raising, I think is a really interesting and important point. And then finally, another point I just wanted to reflect on was this idea that the alignment tool itself could become something that once a government has completed its alignment assessment process for its existing laws and policies, it might even use the tool in the future when it's passing a new law or regulation or implementing a new policy to understand the degree to which that new instrument aligns with the ASEAN-RAI. So it could be kind of a forward-looking as well as a backwards-looking tool. So yeah, I really just wanted to reflect on or sort of underscore those 4 points that I thought were really, really fascinating and very salient coming out of the Indonesian experience. So I might pause there and just hand over. I can see there are some questions in the chat that Ronald, you probably want to get to.
Thank you, Sarah, for all the observations and key insights that are coming out from the Indonesia's experience. Pak Erizal, you would want to respond to Ms. Sarah's queries and inputs? I would like to give it the floor to you before we move on to the other questions that we have.
Yes. May I get is from chat? In the assessment, pardon? Hello?
Hi, Rizal. Do you want to respond to the previous intervention, or do you have something to say for responding to that?
Hello?
Hello, Pak Rizal.
Yeah.
Do you have anything as a response to the previous intervention?
Hello, Pak Ronald.
Yes, Pak. Yes, Pak Rizal.
Can you repeat again?
Do you want to say something as a response to what Ms. Sarah has said earlier?
Yeah. I think in general, I think we in some his comment, I think we agree with his comment. And the challenge is more about to make more understanding among the participant about this tool and guideline. I think it's more about that.
Thank you very much, Pak Erizal. If there's no other issues to be raised on that intervention, I would like to move on to the other question in the chat box, which was from Mr. KF Chin. So, Pak Erizal, there was this question of, in the assessment, do you find any clash or divergence of Indonesia's national regulation or interest with the RAI guidelines?
Yes. Thank you for the question. I think based on our experience, especially for the guideline related with the land tenure, also natural resource and climate change, we have some not really we call that class, but it's more more discussion, high discussion about some issue related with the land, especially related the issue of agrarian reform, and also for the climate change issue. I think we have different view about the like from the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. I think there are different view related with some issue related with the climate change issue compared with the under Ministry of Agriculture. So we discuss, and more as I think we try to get the same view for the some issue. I think just it. And for the land tenure is more about with the National Land Agency for the how to implement for the agrarian reform based on the Ministry of Agriculture regulation, and the regulation based on the national regulation under the National Land Agency. We have some split of understanding about this, and I think it's really not a clash, but more about the high tension discussion, and we try to get the compromise about this issue. It's to be like that, not really a class.
Thank you very much, Pak Rizal. I saw there was a hand raised previously. I think it was Pak Dwi Hertedi. Pak Dwi, do you want to raise a question before? Pak Dwi Hertedi?
I think maybe Pak Dwi also part of our team. I think
Oh, okay.
there's not really a question. I think maybe he will make a clarification or more information. Pak Dwi, if you have some comment, I think it's time for you, Pak Dwi. I think no, Pak Roland.
All right. I think I'll just open. Thank you, Pak Rizal. I think I'll just open the floor for anyone to raise any questions to Indonesia about their experience in conducting this alignment assessment process. Please just raise hand or just go directly, open your camera and then ask a question. Rob, please, Rob, go ahead.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Rob Cole. I'm from Mekong Region Land Governance. Thanks for this really informative session. It was very interesting, particularly to hear from Erizal about the practical experience of the ASEAN alignment process. I had a question on one of your slides, Erizal. It mentioned that there was a lack of understanding on the objectives of ASEAN-RAI among some of the stakeholders. So my question is, in following the process of ASEAN-RAI alignment and following this tool, did that actually help those stakeholders to develop some objectives on RAI in the process? Thank you.
What I understanding for the Robert question is related with the understanding about the RAI assessment objective for the some participant in Indonesia. Okay, I think it's to be like that, Robert. Yeah. Based on our experience, I think maybe because of the intensity of our communication, also for the some material is not really we can give that for the participant before that. So this is more about the lack of information about this issue. And after we try to have some focus group discussion, and also for the personal approach for some agency, and we give the more information. I think this issue, I think, already clear already. So we can do this activity with the same understanding among the participant in the next step of the meeting. I think is only this issue only for the primarily meeting, and the impact is more about some how they feel the material for the regulation in the interpretation about the table, and they not really according with the guideline to fill in the information in the table. It's more about that, Robert.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob. I saw Dr. Pau's hands were raised previously. Dr. Pau, do you want to raise a question to Pak Rizal, please?
Yes, thank you very much for the very informative and interesting experience from Indonesia. I would like to, not a direct question, but like a discussion. I think now I decided to try the assessment in our country, the ASEAN-RAI assessment in our country. During your first experience, maybe I think you need to reform your national existing law and policy and something. And also the harmonization of the ASEAN country as well as the other not ASEAN country. In this situation, how and what and how to make and discuss and like what kind of reforms you have done in the Indonesia, something like that.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Pau. As I mentioned it to you about the situation in Indonesia in the last 2 years, we formulate a new law. We call it law number 11 about the job creation. We call that the new way. We call that the omnibus law. Is really a reform for the law in Indonesia. We try to evaluate all of the law related with the investment and permit. And I think ASEAN-RAI activity, I think in line with this process. So we are really lucky because some reform already conducted by government through the new law, new law that. Yeah, but we based on our experience through this ASEAN-RAI activity, we found another law that need to reform. And I think our government in the next 1 years still have chance, give chance to all the minister to propose a new reform related with the regulation related with the regulation in investment and also for the agriculture permit. So I think we are in the good position for the to use ASEAN-RAI activity for the proposed to our government for the next reform our regulation. Is to be like that, Dr. Pau.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pau. I think we still have time for another question before we close and join the plenary. Please, from the floor, is anyone that want to ask a question for Indonesia? Please raise your hand or just open your camera and ask the question. I think if not, I also would like to add the next steps that Indonesia is, and also the other countries which are currently doing, is the peer-to-peer review process, which will then help to validate and also to address some of the gaps being identified in the presentation. So I guess what we'll do in the next couple of weeks or months, I will try to have this peer review exercise, and we'll see how that process would be able to address some of the, as Pak Rizal has mentioned earlier, misinterpretation between agencies, different understanding of a particular guideline can be resolved through that particular process.
Hello, Ronel. One thing I would like to ask you, the IISD. So now I'm trying to practice the online tool by my personal experience, not covered all the stakeholders, all the other experts from the other ministry, but I will try to the online tool. And then what can you help us from that practice, or
Dr. Pao, I think we are losing you. I guess just for the other in the room, we already have the beta version of the online tool, which we have shared the link to it. So anyone can look at it, in fact, right now, like how does it looks like and how it operates. And please feel free to send us an email if you have any problems in accessing the tool. But definitely the final version of it will be available by next month. So by the first week of July, the final version of the online tool should be up and running. And I hope it will be able to help you to further use the guidelines and the tool for your own purposes.
Okay, Pak Ronald.
Thank you very much, Pak Rizal,
You
for
are
the kind
okay.
presentation.
So we'll leave the break room and go to the main room.
Yes, we'll be joining the plenary session in just 40 seconds.
Recording in progress.